Know before you owe. That's a great concept. It's one that the CFPB stands for and the mortgage community believes in. Unfortunately, come January 10th, 2014, if no action is taken, then the mortgage world will become even more complicated and confusing for consumers. This will be a result of the new qualified mortgage. In addition to less transparency for consumers, many small local broker shops will also be forced to close or be absorbed by a larger bank. What's important to understand is that the underlying purpose of the qualified mortgage is to give banks protection from being sued by consumers after a loan closes. So with that in mind, it's less surprising that a law intended to protect banks doesn't protect consumers. What is surprising is that the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, is the agency enforcing it. Thankfully, there are amendments to the qualified mortgage that will help curb the negative impacts. Those amendments are HR1077 and S949. They all work to level the playing field between brokers and banks. For some background, here's how it works now. Mortgage brokers must disclose all the costs, points, and fees associated with the transaction. How much a broker makes is completely transparent. However, banks only have to show what the consumer pays, not how much the bank earns behind the scenes. So the consumer has no idea how much the bank is really making off his or her loan. The qualified mortgage, or QM, comes with a 3% cap on the cost, points, and fees. What makes this such a big deal is that since brokers and banks disclose fees differently, the 3% cap is calculated differently. Brokers have to include all the points, costs, and fees, and banks don't. That will make it impossible for the consumer to make a fair cost comparison between different loan options. In fact, this discrepancy would make the truth in lending disclosure from a brokerage show a higher APR than the APR that a bank would show for the exact same loan. This gives the large, too big to fail banks an unfair advantage, making it hard for the small broker shops to compete. In fact, it stands to put thousands of independent mortgage companies, like my own, out of business, giving consumers fewer choices. Groups such as Americans for Financial Reform want the qualified mortgage to be enacted as is. What they don't realize is that the first wave of the Dodd-Frank Act has already put the felons and bullies out of business. It would be disastrous for the second wave to put the independent brokers, the mom and pop shops, out of business too. So, if you want to provide consumers with meaningful financial protection, please support these amendments. What we need is a 3% cap that fits the realities of the mortgage business, and it will give little guys like this the real choices he deserves when it's time for him to buy a home. So please, send this message to your representatives in support of HR 1077 and S949. Thank you.